the blade pressed cold against her throat in the basement of Seoul's most feared syndicate. But it wasn't the steel that made Mary's breath catch. It was the way Oh Kyung-min's obsidian eyes locked onto hers across the blood-stained concrete, something ancient and possessive igniting in his chest the moment he saw her trembling there. A captive meant for leverage who had just become his entire world. In that single heartbeat, the Mafia boss who'd never hesitated to pull a trigger felt his carefully constructed walls shatter, and he knew with terrifying certainty that he would burn down every organization, every rival, every threat that dared stand between him and the beautiful woman whose fear-bright eyes were about to change everything. Welcome to Afrokorea TV. Please like, share, and subscribe. The gunshot that ended the captor's life echoed through the basement 3 seconds after Kyung-min gave the signal. Mary flinched, squeezing her eyes shut as warm blood splattered across the concrete floor inches from her bound hands. When she finally dared to look up, the man standing before her wasn't the monster she'd imagined from the rumors whispered in the secretary pool. He was beautiful and terrifying all at once, moving toward her with predatory grace. "Don't touch me," she whispered, though her voice carried no real conviction. Kyung-min crouched before her, his expensive suit somehow still pristine despite the carnage around them. His fingers were surprisingly gentle as they worked the ropes binding her wrists, and Mary found herself staring at the sharp line of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. "You work for me," he said quietly, and it wasn't a question. Mary nodded, remembering the temp agency that had placed her at the import-export company 3 weeks ago. She'd thought it was legitimate. She'd been so naive. "I'm sorry," she breathed. "I didn't know about any of this. I just needed the job. I can leave. I'll forget everything." "No." The single word cut through her rambling. Kyung-min's hand caught her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. "You're not going anywhere." The next morning, Mary woke in a bedroom that probably cost more than she'd earned in 10 years. Silk sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline, marble bathroom visible through an open door. Her clothes from yesterday, blood-stained and torn, had been replaced with soft loungewear in exactly her size, which should have been impossible. A knock at the door made her jump. "Miss Mary." A woman's voice, speaking English with a Korean accent. "Mr. O requests your presence for breakfast." Requests. As if she had a choice. The dining room was obscenely elegant, all dark wood and modern lighting. Kyung-min sat at the head of the table reading something on his tablet, and he looked up when she entered. The intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the seat beside him. Not across from him, beside him. Mary obeyed, hyper-aware of how close their chairs were. A staff member appeared immediately with coffee, eggs, rice, fruit. "Far too much food. You're wondering why you're here," Kyung-min said, setting down his tablet. "Among other things," Mary managed. "You were taken by the Park Syndicate. They wanted leverage against me." He spoke as if discussing the weather. "They chose poorly. So I can go home now?" "No." The single word landed like a physical blow. Mary's hands clenched in her lap. "You can't just keep me here. I have rights. I have. You have nothing." Kyung-min's voice remained calm, but something flickered in his eyes. "Your apartment was destroyed last night. The Parks made sure of it. Your passport, your belongings, everything. They wanted to send a message." Horror flooded through her. "My things will be replaced." He leaned closer, and Mary caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker, more dangerous. "Everything. You'll stay here where I can protect you. You'll continue working as my secretary, but from this location. The office building isn't safe anymore." "I don't understand why." "Because they saw you." Kyung-min's jaw tightened. "And now they know you matter." The words hung between them, loaded with meaning Mary wasn't ready to examine. By the end of the week, Mary had settled into a strange new routine. Mornings working in Kyung-min's home office, organizing legitimate business alongside the more questionable dealings she was beginning to recognize. Afternoons when men with guns came and went, speaking in rapid Korean she couldn't follow. Evenings when Kyung-min would dismiss everyone, and they'd eat dinner together in loaded silence. She'd started noticing things. The way his gaze followed her across rooms. How he'd appear whenever she seemed uncomfortable, positioning himself between her and whatever had caused her distress. The way he'd removed his suit jacket one evening and draped it over her shoulders when she'd shivered. His fingers lingering just a moment too long. "You're staring," she said one night, unable to take the tension anymore. They were in his study, her organizing files while he reviewed contracts. Kyungmin didn't deny it. "You're beautiful when you're focused," he said simply. Mary's hand stilled on the papers. "Mr. O. Kyungmin." His voice dropped lower. "When we're alone you'll use my name. That's not appropriate. I work for you. You think any of this is appropriate?" He stood, moving around the desk with that same predatory grace she'd noticed in the basement. "You think keeping you here is appropriate? Wanting you is appropriate?" Mary's back hit the bookshelf behind her. She hadn't even realized she'd retreated. "You can't, we can't." "Can't what?" Kyungmin stopped inches away, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Can't acknowledge what's been burning between us since the moment I saw you? Can't admit that you feel it too?" "I don't," she whispered, the lie tasting bitter. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her lower lip with devastating gentleness. "Liar." Then he stepped back, putting careful distance between them, and Mary hated how much she missed his proximity. "Go to bed, Mary," he said quietly. "Before I forget, I'm trying to be a gentleman." The following morning, everything changed when Park Ji-hoon appeared at a business meeting Mary was transcribing. He was handsome in a cold, calculated way, and the moment he saw her, his eyes lit with recognition and something uglier. "So this is the famous secretary," Ji-hoon said in perfect English, moving too close. "The one Oh Kyungmin is keeping locked in his tower." "The meeting is about distribution routes," Kyungmin said, his voice arctic. "Not my personal affairs." "But she is your personal affair, isn't she?" Ji-hoon smiled predatory. "I can see why you're so protective. She's exquisite." Mary felt Kyungmin's fury before she saw it. A crackling tension that filled the room. He stood slowly, deliberately, and suddenly Ji-hoon's confidence wavered. "Touch her," Kyungmin said softly, "and I'll remove your hands at the wrist." The meeting ended shortly after, Ji-hoon leaving with poorly concealed rage. Mary was shaking as she gathered her notes, and Kyungmin's hand on her lower back steadied her. "You're safe," he murmured. "Always." But that evening, everything shattered when one of Kyungmin's men reported that Ji-hoon was spreading rumors, that Mary was Kyungmin's weakness, that she could be exploited, that anyone wanting leverage needed only to threaten the curvy black secretary who'd captured Seoul's most dangerous man's attention. "This is my fault," Mary said, pacing Kyungmin's study. "I should leave. Go back to Africa, disappear, I'm putting you at risk." "Stop." Kyungmin caught her arm, spinning her to face him. "You're not going anywhere. You don't understand." "No, you don't understand." His grip tightened, not painfully but possessively. "I don't care about the risk. I don't care about the rumors. The only thing I care about is keeping you alive and with me." "Why?" Mary demanded, tears burning her eyes. "Why do you care so much?" "I'm nothing, I'm just." "You're everything." The words tore out of him like a confession. "From the moment I saw you in that basement, you've been everything. I can't explain it, I can't rationalize it, but you're in my blood now, Mary. You're mine." The kiss that followed was inevitable, fierce and desperate and achingly tender all at once. Mary's hands fisted in his shirt as Kyungmin backed her against the desk, his mouth claiming hers with the intensity of a man who'd been holding back for far too long. Later that night, wrapped in sheets that smelled like him, Mary traced the scars on Kyungmin's chest and tried to make sense of what had happened. The way he'd touched her, reverent and possessive and devastatingly gentle. The way he'd whispered her name like a prayer. The way he'd made her feel cherished and desired and safe all at once. But as dawn crept through the windows, fear settled in her chest. Men like Kyungmin didn't keep women like her. They had their fun, their moment of passion, and then they moved on. She'd been a fool to think this meant anything more. So she slipped from his bed while he slept, dressed quickly, and walked out of the penthouse with nothing but the clothes on her back. She made it 3 blocks before the black car pulled up beside her. But it wasn't Kyungmin's car, it was Ji-hoon's, and the men who grabbed her were efficient and brutal, dragging her into the vehicle before she could scream. "Oh, Kyungmin should have known better," Ji-hoon said from the front seat, his smile vicious. You can't keep something so valuable unprotected. Not in this world. Terror flooded through Mary as the car sped through Seoul's early morning streets, heading toward the docks where she knew people disappeared forever. But Ji-hoon had made one fatal mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how far Oh Kyung-min would go for the woman who'd become his entire world. Kyung-min woke to cold sheets and immediate, visceral panic. Mary was gone. He'd known the moment consciousness returned, felt her absence like a physical wound. He was dressed and mobilizing his entire organization within minutes, his second-in-command receiving orders in clipped, furious Korean. Find her. Now. Every man we have, every resource, I don't care what it costs. His phone buzzed with a message. A photo of Mary bound and terrified in what looked like a warehouse. Ji-hoon's message was simple. Come alone or she dies screaming. Kyung-min stared at the image, at Mary's fear-bright eyes, and something cold and ancient settled over him. He'd built his empire on violence, on strategic brutality, on calculated mercy. But this wasn't business. This was personal. Prepare everything, he told his second. And when I give the signal, burn it all down. The warehouse was exactly where Kyung-min expected. Park territory, isolated, designed for the kind of work that left no witnesses. He walked in alone as instructed, hands visible, no obvious weapons. Ji-hoon was waiting with a dozen men, Mary bound to a chair in the center of the space. You actually came, Ji-hoon said, sounding almost disappointed. I expected more resistance from Seoul's great Oh Kyung-min. Let her go. Kyung-min's voice was utterly calm. This is between us. But that's where you're wrong. Ji-hoon circled Mary's chair, fingers trailing over her shoulder in a way that made Kyung-min's vision narrow to red. This is about showing everyone that you're weak now, that you can be hurt, that the great mafia boss has a soft spot that can be exploited. You've made a mistake, Kyung-min said quietly. Have I? Ji-hoon pulled out a knife, pressing it to Mary's throat. Seems like I'm holding all the... The windows exploded inward with the percussion of flashbangs. Smoke filled the warehouse as Kyung-min's men poured in from every entrance. And in the chaos Kyung-min moved. 3 steps and he'd disarmed the man nearest him. 2 more and he'd closed the distance to Ji-hoon. His hand catching the other man's wrist with bone-breaking force. The knife clattered away. Ji-hoon screamed. I gave you a chance, Kyung-min said, his voice barely audible over the gunfire. One chance to walk away, to leave her alone, to understand that she's untouchable. He didn't kill Ji-hoon, not immediately. That would have been too merciful. Instead, he handed him over to his men with quiet instructions that made even his hardened second-in-command pale slightly. Then he turned to Mary, cutting her bonds with efficient movements, gathering her trembling body against his chest. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. I've got you and I'm never letting go. Back at the penthouse, after the adrenaline faded and the fear subsided, Mary finally found her voice. They were on his balcony overlooking the city, wrapped in blankets against the cool night air. Why did you come? She whispered. Why risk everything for me? Kyung-min was quiet for a long moment, his arms tightening around her waist. You asked me that before. Why I care so much. You said I was everything. But you don't know me, not really. We've only... I know enough. He turned her to face him, and in the dim lighting, his expression was unbearably vulnerable. I know you're brave and stubborn and too kind for this world. I know you see people, really see them, not just what they can do for you. I know that when you smile, actually smile, it feels like the sun coming out. I know that I was dead inside before you, just going through motions, and now... Now, Mary prompted, her heart hammering. Now I'm alive. Terrified and alive and completely yours. His forehead pressed against hers. I don't know what you did to me in that basement, what impossible thing awakened when I saw you, but I'm not the same. I'll never be the same. I left this morning, Mary confessed, tears spilling over. I was scared. I thought you'd regret me, that I was just... The only thing I regret is not telling you sooner how completely you've destroyed me. Kyung-min kissed her softly, tenderly. Stay. Choose me. Choose this terrifying, impossible thing between us. It's insane, Mary whispered against his lips. I know. We barely know each other. I know. Your world is dangerous. I know. His hands cupped her face, thumbs wiping away her tears. But I'll keep you safe. I'll give you everything. I'll be whatever you need me to be. Just stay. Mary looked at him, really looked at him. At the vulnerability in his eyes, the fierce devotion. The way he held her like she was something precious and irreplaceable. And she realized that maybe impossibly this terrifying thing between them was real. Okay, she breathed. Okay. The kiss that followed tasted like promises and new beginnings. And as Kyungmin carried her back inside, Mary finally understood that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world was also the safest place to fall. The following weeks passed in a blur of increasing domesticity that would have seemed impossible given how they'd started. Kyungmin was still dangerous, still ruthless in business, but with Mary he was different, softer in ways that made his men exchange bewildered glances. He'd appear behind her while she worked, dropping a coffee exactly how she liked it. He'd dismiss meetings early just to have dinner with her. He'd spend hours teaching her Korean phrases, his patience infinite when she struggled with pronunciation. He bought her things, not to show off but because he'd remember her mentioning she liked something in passing. "You're spoiling me," Mary said one evening, looking at the latest gift, a first edition of her favorite book. "That's the point." Kyungmin pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. "I want to give you the world." But the world, as it turned out, wasn't ready to let them be happy. A few days later, Mary was shopping with the bodyguard Kyungmin insisted accompany her when she noticed the man following them. She'd gotten better at spotting threats, at reading the tension in her guard's shoulders, at knowing when something was wrong. "We need to leave," the guard said quietly in English, his hand moving to his concealed weapon. They didn't make it to the car. The explosion ripped through the street with devastating force, and Mary's last conscious thought was of Kyungmin's name on her lips before darkness claimed her. She woke in a hospital room to the steady beep of monitors and the crushing weight of Kyungmin's head on her bed, his hand gripping hers like a lifeline. He was asleep, or had been, because the moment she stirred, his head jerked up, and the relief that flooded his face was almost painful to witness. "Mary," he breathed, his voice wrecked. "Oh God, Mary. What happened?" Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Car bomb. You've been unconscious for 2 days." His hand shook as he brushed hair from her face. "The doctors said, they said you might not wake up, that the head trauma." "I'm okay," she whispered, even though she hurt everywhere. "You're not okay. You almost died. You almost." His voice broke and Mary realized with shock that Oh Kyungmin, Seoul's most feared mafia boss, was crying. "I can't lose you. I can't. You have to understand, if you die, I die. That's just how it is now." Mary pulled him closer with her good arm, letting him rest his head against her chest, feeling his tears soak through the hospital gown. "I'm here," she murmured. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." But even as she said it, she knew the truth. They couldn't keep living like this, couldn't keep pretending that his world wouldn't eventually destroy her. Something had to change. The hospital released Mary after 5 days, but the explosion had changed everything. Kyungmin barely left her side, working from her recovery room, conducting meetings via video with his hand always touching some part of her. Her arm, her leg, her hand, as if reassuring himself she was real and alive. "You're being overprotective," Mary said one afternoon, watching him dismiss yet another visitor who'd come to check on her. "I'm being exactly as protective as necessary." His jaw was set in that stubborn line she'd come to recognize. The Parks claimed responsibility. They wanted to send a message. They nearly succeeded. "Which is why," Kyungmin stopped himself, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "We need to talk. Really talk. About what happens next." Mary's heart clenched. This was it, the conversation where he'd explain that she needed to leave, that staying with him was too dangerous, that he'd arrange for her safety somewhere far away from Seoul and his world. "I understand," she said quietly. "You're right. I should go back to. Marry me." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect and completely insane. Mary stared at him, certain she'd heard wrong, that the pain medication was making her hallucinate. "What?" Kyungmin moved to kneel beside the bed, taking her hands in his. "Marry me. Not someday, not eventually, now. As soon as you're strong enough to stand without getting dizzy." You can't be serious. We've barely been together 2 months. You're proposing because I almost died, that's not. I'm proposing because I almost lost you, Kyungmin interrupted, his grip tightening. Because I realize that every day I don't call you my wife is a day wasted. Because in my world, marriage means protection. It means every organization and soul knows that touching you means declaring war on me and everything I've built. So this is strategic? The words hurt to say. No. His voice softened and he reached up to cup her face. This is me being selfish. This is me wanting you bound to me in every way possible. This is me loving you so completely that the thought of you not being mine terrifies me more than any enemy ever could. Mary's breath caught. You love me. Desperately. Hopelessly. Completely. He pressed his forehead to hers. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But nothing about us has been normal from the start, so why start pretending now? Your family, your organization, they'll never accept. They'll accept what I tell them to accept. Steel entered his voice. I'm Oh Kyungmin. I've built an empire on my terms. And those terms now include you as my wife, my partner, my equal. Anyone who has a problem with that can find new employment. Mary searched his eyes, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign this was just adrenaline and fear talking. But all she found was fierce certainty and devastating love. This is crazy, she whispered. I know. We're going to face so much opposition. I know. I'm terrified. So am I. He kissed her softly. Say yes anyway. And because Mary had apparently lost her mind completely, because this beautiful, dangerous man had somehow become her entire world, because the thought of leaving him hurt worse than any explosion, she did. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. The following morning brought unexpected visitors. Kyungmin's mother arrived at the penthouse with his younger sister, both women radiating the kind of elegant power that made Mary suddenly hyper-aware of her healing bruises and borrowed clothes. So you're the secretary, his mother said in precise English, her gaze cataloging every detail. The one my son has decided to marry. Mother. Kyungmin's voice carried a warning. I'm just observing. She moved closer to Mary, who fought the urge to step back. You're very beautiful. Very different from the women Kyungmin usually associates with. Mother. Kyungmin repeated more sharply. But his mother's expression softened unexpectedly. You must understand, we worry. My son has many enemies. His previous relationships ended badly because the women couldn't handle his world. They wanted the money, the status, but not the danger. I didn't ask for any of this, Mary said quietly. I just wanted a job. But your son. She looked at Kyungmin, finding him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Your son makes me want to be brave enough to stay. Something shifted in his mother's expression. You love him. Yes. There was no point denying it. Even knowing what he is? What he does. Because of what he is, Mary corrected. All of it. The danger and the devotion. The ruthlessness and the tenderness. I love all of him. Kyungmin's sister laughed suddenly, breaking the tension. I like her, Appa. She doesn't pretend to be something she's not. His mother studied Mary for another long moment before nodding slowly. The wedding will be small but traditional. Korean ceremony first, then you may have whatever Western celebration you wish. And you'll need security. I'll arrange for my personal team until Kyungmin's men are properly vetted. You're okay with this? Mary asked, surprised. My son hasn't smiled genuinely in years. Until you. His mother's expression softened further. That's worth more than any strategic alliance could be. But hurt him, and even your curvy beauty won't save you from my wrath. The threat should have been terrifying, but somehow it just made Mary want to laugh. Kyungmin's family was as intense as he was. She was starting to understand where he got it from. That evening, after his family left, Kyungmin found Mary on the balcony staring at the Seoul skyline. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her against his chest. They love you already, he murmured into her hair. Your mother threatened me. That means she's accepted you. If she didn't care, she wouldn't bother with threats. He turned her to face him. Having second thoughts? Constantly. Mary smiled despite herself. But I'm still here. Good. His kiss was soft, sweet, completely at odds with his reputation. Because I'm never letting you go. But peace, Mary was learning, never lasted long in Kyungmin's world. A few days later, Mary was reviewing contracts in Kyungmin's study when she overheard the argument from his office next door. The walls were thick, but voices were raised enough that she caught phrases: liability, weakness, target on our backs. His second-in-command appeared at the study door, his expression grim. Miss Mary, you should come with me. What's happening? The council is questioning Mr. O's judgment. They believe his attachment to you is compromising his leadership. Ice flooded through Mary's veins. This was what she'd feared, that she'd become the thing that destroyed him. She moved toward Kyungmin's office, but his second caught her arm. He won't want you to see him like this. I don't care what he wants. She pulled free and pushed open the office door. The scene inside was tense. 5 older men in expensive suits facing Kyungmin across his desk, their postures aggressive. One was mid-sentence when Mary entered, and the sudden silence was deafening. Gentlemen, she said calmly, switching to the Korean phrases Kyungmin had taught her. I believe you were discussing me? Kyungmin's expression was thunderous. Mary, go back to the study. No. She moved to stand beside him, not behind. If they have concerns about me, they can address them to my face. One of the council members laughed, but it wasn't kind. Bold. But boldness doesn't change facts. You're a liability, Miss Mary. Your presence has already cost us 2 operations and multiple casualties. The other syndicates see you as Oh Kyungmin's weakness. Then they're fools, Mary said quietly. Because anyone who thinks love makes him weak doesn't know him at all. Love is a luxury we cannot afford. Love is what makes him human. Mary's voice hardened. What makes him worth following? You built an empire on fear and loyalty, but you're forgetting the second part. People follow Kyungmin because he protects what's his. Because he's loyal to those loyal to him. Because when someone threatens his people, he doesn't hesitate. She turned to look at Kyungmin, finding his eyes blazing with something fierce and proud. I won't apologize for loving him. And I won't leave. So if you want me gone, you'll have to go through him first. And we all know how that ends. The silence stretched taut. Then surprisingly, the oldest council member smiled. Perhaps we've underestimated you, Miss Mary. He stood, bowing slightly. Very well. But understand, if you truly love him, you'll need to be stronger than anyone expects. This world will test you constantly. Let it try, Mary said simply. After they left, Kyungmin pulled her against him so hard she could barely breathe, his face buried in her neck. You're incredible, he murmured. Absolutely incredible. I just told your scary mafia council that I'm not going anywhere. I think I deserve some kind of award. I'll give you anything you want. He pulled back to look at her, his expression intense. Everything. Just stay with me. Always, Mary promised and meant it. The wedding was planned for the following month, but 2 weeks before the ceremony, everything fell apart. Mary was shopping for her dress with Kyungmin's sister when the call came. Kyungmin had been ambushed on his way to a meeting. 4 men dead, including 2 of his guards. He was alive, but the Parks had declared open war. Mary's blood turned to ice as his sister drove them back to the penthouse at dangerous speeds, security vehicles flanking them on all sides. Kyungmin was pacing in his study when they arrived, his shirt torn and bloodstained, a cut above his eyebrow that he seemed completely unaware of. You're hurt, Mary said, moving toward him. It's nothing. But he pulled her against him fiercely, his hands shaking slightly. They waited until I was in the open. Professional hit team. If I hadn't changed vehicles at the last second. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We need to postpone the wedding, Mary said quietly. Until this is resolved. No. Kyungmin's voice was absolute. We're not postponing anything. We're moving it up. That's insane. This is exactly why we're doing it now. He cupped her face, his gaze fierce. Because every day we wait is another day something could go wrong. Another day you're not my wife. I'm not waiting anymore, Mary. We're getting married this weekend, and then I'm ending this war once and for all. How? His expression went cold in a way that reminded her exactly who she'd fallen in love with. The only way the Parks will understand. Completely. Permanently. Mary shivered, but not entirely from fear. I don't want you getting hurt because of me. Then we're even, because I'd burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you. He kissed her hard. 3 days, Mary. In 3 days you're mine forever. The wedding happened in a traditional Korean house with only family and Kyungmin's most trusted men present. Mary wore a beautiful hanbok that his mother had commissioned, the silk red and gold and impossibly elegant. Kyungmin was devastating in traditional dress, his eyes never leaving her as she approached. The ceremony was beautiful and terrifying and perfect. Every word a promise, every gesture loaded with meaning. When Kyungmin finally kissed her as his wife, Mary tasted desperation and devotion, and something that felt like forever. Mrs. O, he murmured against her lips, and the title sent shivers down her spine. The reception was brief, just a meal with family where Mary tried to ignore the security stationed at every entrance, the way Kyungmin kept her within arm's reach at all times. His mother gave a toast that made Mary cry. His sister whispered that she'd never seen her brother so happy. And then as the sun set over Seoul, Kyungmin pulled Mary aside. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Tonight, while everyone thinks we're at the hotel beginning our honeymoon, I'm ending this. The Parks, the council members who tried to undermine me, everyone who thought they could use you against me. You're going to war. It wasn't a question. I'm ending one. His hands framed her face. And when it's over, when every threat is eliminated, we're going to have the life we deserve. Children if you want them. Peace. Actual peace, Mary, not just the illusion of it. And if something goes wrong tonight? It won't. But his kiss was desperate anyway, like he was memorizing the taste of her. I love you. Remember that. Whatever happens, remember that you're the only good thing I've ever done. Kyungmin. But he was already moving. Already transforming into the dangerous man who'd built an empire. And Mary could only watch as he disappeared into the night, taking her heart with him. The hours that followed were the longest of Mary's life. She stayed at the penthouse with his mother and sister, surrounded by guards, listening to reports that came in sporadic bursts. Gunfire at the park's headquarters. Explosions. Casualties. The systematic dismantling of an entire organization. He'll come back, his mother said quietly, her hand covering Mary's. My son always comes back. But Mary couldn't shake the fear, the certainty that this was too good to be true, that something would go wrong. The door burst open and Kyungmin strode in, blood-splattered and exhausted and alive. Mary was moving before she consciously decided to, throwing herself into his arms hard enough to make them both stumble. You're okay, she gasped against his chest. You're okay. It's done. His arms tightened around her. It's over. The Parks are finished, the council has been reorganized, and every syndicate in Seoul now understands that you're untouchable. People died tonight. Yes. He didn't apologize for it. But they would have kept coming for you, kept using you as leverage. I couldn't let that continue. Mary pulled back to look at him, at the man she'd married, the beautiful monster who just destroyed his enemies to keep her safe. She should have been horrified. She should have been terrified. Instead she kissed him. Take me home, she whispered. Our home. And don't leave me again. Never, Kyungmin promised. Never again. The weeks that followed were surreal in their normalcy. Kyungmin's organization stabilized under new leadership, with council members who understood that Mary was not a weakness but a line they didn't cross. The other syndicates maintained cautious distance, having learned exactly what Kyungmin would do for his wife. Mary settled into her new role. Not just secretary but partner, learning the business, offering insights that Kyungmin valued. They had dinner together every night. They woke up together every morning. They built something that looked surprisingly like a normal life, despite the armed guards and the dangerous undercurrents. You're quiet, Kyungmin said one evening, finding her on the balcony. Just thinking. Mary leaned back against him. About how impossible this all seemed. About how I was just looking for a job, and instead I found a crime boss with control issues who's obsessed with you? She laughed despite herself. I was going to say home. I found home. Kyungmin turned her to face him, his expression unbearably tender. I found salvation. You saved me, Mary. From myself, from what I was becoming. You made me want to be better. You were already good. You just needed someone to see it. I love you. He said it like a prayer, like a promise, like the most important truth he'd ever spoken. Everything I am, everything I have, it's yours. I love you too. Mary kissed him softly. My beautiful, dangerous, impossible husband. 3 months after their wedding, Mary woke feeling inexplicably nauseous. It took 2 days and 3 subtle symptoms before she worked up the courage to take the test she'd bought secretly. When the positive result appeared, she stared at it in shock for a full minute. She was pregnant. She was pregnant with Oh Kyungmin's child. The realization terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. They discussed children in abstract terms someday maybes, but this was real. This was happening. And Mary had no idea how to tell the most dangerous man in Seoul that he was going to be a father. In the end, she just showed him the test. Kyungmin stared at it for so long Mary started to panic. Then he looked up at her, and the expression on his face, wonder and fear and overwhelming joy, made her breath catch. You're sure? His voice cracked slightly. I'm going to make an appointment to confirm, but yes, I'm sure. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, pulling her against him with devastating gentleness. A baby. We're having a baby. Is this okay? I know we didn't plan. It's perfect. He pulled back to look at her, his hands framing her face. You're perfect. I can't. He kissed her instead of finishing, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I'm going to be a father, he whispered like he was testing out the words. The most overprotective father in history, Mary teased. Absolutely. No shame whatsoever in his voice. I'm going to spoil both of you outrageously and threaten anyone who looks at either of you wrong. I wouldn't expect anything less. The pregnancy was closely guarded. Only immediate family knew, security was tripled, and Kyungmin became even more protective than before. He attended every doctor's appointment, held Mary's hand through morning sickness, and spent hours researching everything about pregnancy and childbirth. You're reading another parenting book, Mary said one evening, finding him on the couch with his tablet. I want to be prepared. You've read like 20 already. And I'll read 20 more. He pulled her down beside him, his hand immediately going to her still flat stomach. I want to be a good father. I want our child to grow up knowing they're loved and protected. They will. Mary covered his hand with hers. Because you're already a good man, Kyungmin. You just needed to see it. The months passed in a blur of doctors' visits and preparations. The nursery was designed and redesigned 3 times. Kyungmin's mother arrived with family heirlooms and advice. His sister organized a baby shower that was equal parts adorable and terrifying. Given the guest list included several high-ranking syndicate members cooing over baby clothes. And through it all, Kyungmin was there. Constant, devoted, impossibly tender with Mary as her body changed. You're beautiful, he'd whisper at night, his hands tracing the curve of her growing belly. I'm huge. You're beautiful, he'd repeat firmly. You're carrying our child. You've never been more beautiful. On a warm spring evening, 7 months into Mary's pregnancy, everything came together. They were having dinner on the balcony when Mary felt the baby kick particularly hard. She gasped, hand flying to her stomach, and Kyungmin was beside her instantly. What's wrong? Nothing. Here. She guided his hand to where the baby was moving. Feel that. Kyungmin's expression transformed into something Mary had never seen before. Pure, unfiltered awe. That's our baby. That's our baby, Mary confirmed, smiling through sudden tears. He dropped to his knees in front of her, pressing his forehead to her belly, his shoulders shaking slightly. And Mary realized her dangerous, powerful husband was crying. I'm going to give you everything, he whispered to their unborn child. Everything. You and your mother, you're my world. My reason for everything. Mary ran her fingers through his hair, her own tears falling freely. We love you too. So much. Later that night, wrapped in each other, Kyungmin pulled Mary close and kissed her temple. Thank you. For what? For saying yes in that basement. For staying. For loving me despite everything. for giving me a family I never thought I deserved. You deserve everything good, Mary said firmly. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know it. Mrs. O. Yes. I love you. More than I have words for. I love you too. My beautiful, impossible husband. 2 months later, Oh Kyung-min held his daughter for the first time and understood finally completely why people said love could change everything. She was tiny and perfect and looked exactly like Mary, and the moment her small hand wrapped around his finger he was gone. She's beautiful, he breathed, unable to look away. She has your nose, Mary said from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing. She has your everything else. He moved to sit beside her, cradling their daughter carefully. Thank you. For her. For us. For everything. Thank you for finding me, Mary countered. For saving me in that basement. You saved me first. He kissed her softly, mindful of the baby between them. You saved me from myself. Their daughter made a small noise, and both parents immediately focused on her, marveling at every detail. Outside, Seoul continued its dangerous dance. The syndicate still operated. Threats still existed. But in this room, in this moment, Oh Kyung-min and Mary held their entire world in their arms. What should we name her? Mary asked softly. Kyung-min considered, studying his daughter's face. Hope, he said finally. Because that's what you both gave me. Hope for something better than what I was. Hope. Oh. Mary tested it out. It's perfect. And as the sun rose over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the dangerous mafia boss and his beautiful wife began their next chapter. Not as individuals but as a family. Complete. Protected. Loved. The impossible had become real. The dangerous had become safe. And love, fierce, devoted, all-consuming love had conquered everything.